Ross Kaminsky in for Mike Rosen, joined in studio by Laura Carno. She's a political strategist and the founder of I Am Created Equal, a political media company. Laura specializes in reaching people who aren't that interested in politics, and I think this is a really important and fascinating discussion. Laura and I were both, as we are most years, at the leadership program of the Rockies annual retreat a few days ago, and Laura got an award from LPR for the work that you've done, being engaged in politics and making a difference. So before we get to one of your big pushes about Udall lied, we will get to that. I want to talk to you about this idea of reaching people who aren't that interested in politics, because it does seem like, and just to be clear, I'm unaffiliated, I'm not a Republican, and I tend to vote Libertarian, sometimes Republican. But how do I put this? To paraphrase what the guys from South Park said, without using the words that I can't say on the radio, I think it was Trey Parker who said, I hate the Republicans, but I really, really, really hate the Democrats. And that's sort of how I am. And so I want the good guys to win. The good guys tend to be the Republicans. But we keep losing them with the moderates, the middle, the women, the soccer moms. Why is that happening, and what are you doing about it?
Well, first, thanks for having me, Ross. I appreciate you bringing me in studio. So you and I love politics, and we listen to talk radio, and we get onto the news first thing in the morning and see what happened overnight in politics. Most people don't do that. They find politics distasteful. And during political season, when there are political ads on TV and on the radio, they tune them out or turn them off because we use language that you and I might understand. But we have code words in politics, and we talk about somebody's radical liberal agenda. And people who don't like politics, that's just rhetoric to them. But if we use words that make sense to them, and I tend to focus on, we don't want the government telling us what to do. And when you use words like that, like we did in the recalls in southern Colorado, I never said anything about the Second Amendment, like a lot of people were. I said, Senator Morse, don't you dare tell me how to defend myself. All of a sudden, people who aren't interested in politics, their ears perk up because now it's relevant to them.
So tell us a little more, actually. That's a fascinating story about the recalls and kind of the behind-the-scenes stuff that people might find particularly interesting. And again, I do want you to focus, because a lot of people, if they weren't paying very close attention, they'd hear, okay, there's a recall in Colorado Springs, and then they might think, it's Colorado Springs, of course it's going to go for a Republican. But that district includes Manitou Springs, and it's fairly evenly divided, and after the redistricting, maybe even a little Dem-leaning, right?
Right.
And so you really had your work cut out for you. It is not an easy Republican pickup.
Right. It wasn't an easy Republican pickup, and there were so many people involved in the recall for so many different reasons. And your listeners might think that it was all about guns and the gun control bills, and that's certainly how the proponents of the recall got started. They were a bunch of gun guys who were pretty ticked off. But the gun bills alone weren't what got them there. They weren't heard. They tried to call their representatives. They tried to go testify, and they were turned away, as thousands of others, including myself, were turned away. So it was about not being listened to, and the arrogance of a public official who thinks they're better than us. And so, but I got into it on the media side. A lot of people really related it to guns, and I'm a gun owner, a decades-long gun owner. And to put a female face on that and say, who is Senator Morse to tell me how many bullets I can have in my firearm? It's not his decision; it's my decision.
Right, but put your that answer is very gun related, right? But what about when you went up to a house and you're trying to get Morse recalled, just as an example, and you get to a person and for whatever reason, you can just tell, or you know because you know them, or whatever, that they're not really into politics and they're not going to be moved. Say it's a 45-year-old woman, and she doesn't own a gun, and she doesn't care about how many bullets you would like to be able to have in your magazine. What do you say to her to get her to say, yeah, you're right, this guy Morse needs to go?
I'll tell you what that 45-year-old woman is concerned about. Why is the government telling me what kind of light bulbs I should have in my house? Why does Michael Bloomberg, he's not here, he's in New York, but boy, he really impacted people here by his words. Why does a mayor in New York City, who, by the way, wrote a big, fat $350,000 check in the recall, why does he tell his citizens what size soda to drink? Isn't that up to them? There are those issues that women think should stop at the front door of their home. You're not the boss of me. I'm in charge of my house. You go away. And so the gun issue, I'll tell you, I heard from dozens and dozens and dozens, not just women, but men too, who weren't gun owners, who said, you're right. I've never owned a gun, never really thought about it, but why should he get to pick? Why should these 100 people get to pick when you've done nothing wrong?
Let's grab a call. Ron in Littleton, you're on 850 KOA with Ross and with Laura Carno. Hey, Ron.
You really hit a hot button with me. I'm really apolitical. And to quote Shakespeare in Romeo and Juliet, with the Democrats and Republicans, a pox on both their houses.
Look, I feel the same way too. But so here's a question, because this is Laura's business now. What does someone have to say to you to make you care about politics?
Get down to earth and treat me like a human being. I see a lot of Democrats, especially in the state assembly and even in Congress, they are so sanctimonious and condescending. They think us, the people, the masses, are asses.
Yeah, look, they do. You're absolutely right. And what they care about most is their next election. They don't care about you or me, Ron, or Laura, although they're probably a little more afraid of Laura than they are of you and me. At least we hope so. What do you have to say to Ron, Laura?
Well, and it's a great question, Ron. The name of my company, I Am Created Equal, a lot of people think, oh, it's a women's thing. It's not. We know men and women are created equal. We've moved on from that. But it means I, the citizen, am created equal to the government official. They're not the boss of me, and they don't get to tell me what to do. This isn't a place where we have a king and we have to ask permission to open a business or, who we're going to marry or anything like that. So, but you're right. The politicians speak in very sanctimonious terms as if they know better than we do how we should live our lives. And those are the kinds of words that I use in my messaging.
Yeah, because I hear stories now that there's this one, and Mr. Kaminsky, you've heard this, that this is one man that wants to, way out liberal, who wants to change the Constitution, modify the First Amendment, and get rid of the Second.
Well, there are lots of those people out there. Yeah, they want to do whatever fits their own goals. Thank you so much for the call, Ron. I appreciate it. Again, I think Ron's a good example. Although Ron sounds like he's a little older than you and I are, and what I think a lot of the older people maybe do pay a little bit more attention. What I really wonder about is the people a little younger than us, people in their 20s and people in their 30s who rationally don't think about politics all that much, in the sense of they're busy, they don't feel like they can have that much influence. How do you get them, and see if you can give me a 30-second start on this answer, but how do you get them to even care enough to listen, much less care enough to go vote?
Sure. So briefly, kids in the 20 to 30 range, and I call those kids at my age, they don't want to be told what to do. And when you put it that way, you don't want your parents telling you what to do, you don't want your boss telling you what to do, and you don't want your government telling you what to do. Those are really easy conversation starters because these are very independent people. I
mean, do you find that your target audience tends more libertarian than the average, versus conservative or versus far left? It sounds like it.
I would say in the middle, generally, leaning libertarian, or never really thought about politics at all because they didn't think it affected them.
Right. And I bet most of those people would be libertarian if given the chance. When we come back, Laura Carno's big new push, well, one of a few actually, with her organization I Am Created Equal, a new website, a new big push regarding the upcoming U.S. Senate race called Udall Lied. In fact, he did, and there's more than one example of it, and Laura's going to tell us all about him right after these brief words. Stay with us right here, News Radio 850 KOA.